So welcome back to my channel Orchid House. I'm Olivier in Fort Lauderdale, South Florida, and today I wanted to explain to you how I mount Bifoliate Cattleyas that I import from South America. So this one I imported 3 months ago. At first I was not very impressed. The leaves were weak. It was a tiny plant. It didn't have any growth, just one tiny root. But the source was Floralia in Brazil, and I've had great experience with them, and usually they send great plants. So what I do basically is, first of all, so I'm going to add a pad of moss here to give it some moisture, but the moss goes on top of the old roots. Not so there was a tiny little root that you can't see. I mean, it's hidden behind here, but now it's a full-grown root and it's attached to the mount. And so I made sure that this one wasn't touching the moss. So the reason being that you give it moisture so the plant can grow, but at the same time you want that little new growth to say, hey, there's water somewhere, so I'm going to reach for it and grow. And I mean, I've noticed that if I put the moss on top of the new root, they often rot, and that's a death sentence for these Bifoliate Cattleyas. So the other way, obviously, when you mount, you don't want the plant to wobble, so this one is really firmly attached, so otherwise it stops growing. And then the other important factor at first, because this is an empty Zyglossa, it's a highlight plant, but at first they get lower light just to get used to their new environment. And while I was a little uncertain about what the outcome would be, that's also why I use a fairly small mount. It will need a much bigger mount down the road. It's working. So I hope you can see there's one new growth here, and there's a second one. Where's the other one? The other one is there. And then you can see a little root here, but there's more at the back. So the leaves are a lot more plump, and that's really how I monitor these plants. I mean, I check the bulb. Now these ones oftentimes have skinny bulbs, so they don't always look or feel very plump for a while, but the leaves, you will feel the difference. So whenever we have a big rain shower, after the rain shower, I'm going to go check and make sure that it's a little bit more plump. Now this is again too small of a mount, so what I do in those circumstances, I mean, this is not one from Brazil, it's an Alba Walkeriana that I've had for 2 years. I bought it from a local vendor, but you see it got at first a small mount, and then that mount was too small, and so I put it on a bigger mount, and it's already attaching to that bigger mount, and eventually I may even use another one. But you never know. I mean, the risk of losing these plants is far from zero at first, so it's kind of silly to put it on a beautiful large mount and then the plant dies on you. So 3 months, another one, I bought it at the same time. It's also been 3 months. This one came with a new growth. This was the new growth. It had just started. It had a couple of small roots there. In the meantime, there are several that have attached themselves. The pad of moss was on this side. I removed it in the meantime because I feel like the plant is good on its own, and I don't want excessive moisture for these guys. They really need to dry out between waterings. And again, I've been monitoring the growth of this new bulb. I make sure that it continues to stay hard. If it's not, well, I give extra water. So in this instance, I mean, I live in South Florida, so temperatures during the daytime are seldom below 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 Celsius. If it does go below, then maybe once watering a day would be enough, but usually I water them twice. And I just keep an eye on this. I feel the leaves. These leaves are nice and hard now. So I'm happy with that. You can tell it's about probably to have 2 new growths here. And so I think this plant is established. I mean, it looks a little weird, but I mean, it's not wobbly. I mean, the top is wobbling, but not the base. And so I think this one is good to go. This mount is maybe not ideal, and I probably should have positioned it further away because it seems to be growing this way. We'll see down the road. I mean, the reason for mounting these, I mean, bifoliates hate repotting, so by mounting them I avoid that step. So every year or 2 or 3 years I don't have to repot them, they just attach to this mount, and there's never a setback or a risk losing them. I also live in South Florida, so we have monsoon rains in the summer, and I mean, these guys need to dry out between watering. So if we have 3, 4, 5 days of constant rains, I mean, if they are in a pot, I might lose them, or they might start rotting or have diseases. So when they are mounted, this is not going to happen. Now, the third reason for me to mount orchids is usually because it's prettier. If you have an arching inflorescence, it's really gorgeous. These Bifoliate Cattleyas, when they are not in bloom, they are not particularly pretty. They have these skinny sticks usually. So this doesn't add to the presentation. So it's not really about the looks, but more about controlling the water and avoid repotting. And then you have a result. This one has been here 7 months. Let me see if I can get it off here. Where is it? Oops, there you go. So imported from the same vendor, Floralia in Brazil. It's a Guttata. And initially when it arrived, it had this growth. It was minuscule and it had a couple of tiny roots at the back. This is what these roots have become. Initially I put a bunch of moss here. They were old roots that I cut off by now. I mean, they are no longer needed. So the moisture was here. I mean, the plant started growing new roots at the back. Like I said, I watered it twice a day. I monitor this growth. I mean, the leaves are nice and plump. And then when the roots at the back started getting strong and the plant was better established, I removed the moss altogether. And look at this. I mean, this has only been 7 months and it has a very nice size root ball. Now this is a new growth. It's very small. You see these are the old bulbs. This plant got divided. It got shipped. It went from Brazil to South Florida. That's an immense amount of stress, and so it's going to take probably 2, 3, 4 years to be re-established fully. But hey, I already have a new growth here, so I mean, this is on the right track. So I mean, this one is good to go. And it looks like it's going to grow like this, so I have plenty of room here. So this is an appropriate amount, I believe. And what else can I show you? I thought I had a fourth one. Yeah, well, this one I did this morning. It's December 26th, so I really shouldn't be repotting or mounting at this time of the year. I mean, it's not a good time to do so, but I bought this plant from a Central Florida grower only a couple of weeks ago. So this one doesn't have the charm of being imported and go in a plane. So it's already acclimatized to the Florida environment. And it has 1, 2, there's 3 at the back. It's probably tough to show. Sorry, can you? Okay, all right. So, but it has 4 roots basically, and they are strong roots. So I put the moss touching the old roots, and none of the moss is touching these new roots. But they're gonna look for the moisture, and hopefully grow very quickly. And I mean, once it's attached, I can remove this. Again, this is not wobbly. And again, this is also too small of a mount. So down the road, I'm gonna have to attach it to a bigger mount, but we'll cross that line once we get there. So if you live in the northern United States, you grow indoors, maybe you don't need to mount them because you can control the watering. You still have the issue of repotting, so you only want to repot when you have brand new, fresh, tiny roots. I mean, these Bifoliate Cattleyas, they really, if you damage the new roots, you can kill them or set them back pretty dramatically. So I live in South Florida, so I grow my plants outdoors year round, so this is perfect for me. But I mean, those are basically the 3 ways I do it. The pad of moisture away from the new roots, making sure the plant doesn't wobble. I give them low light, and hopefully they are good to go. It's not foolproof. I've had setbacks, but I think this is a right approach. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.